Let's bring in Ric Bucher as we have the potential of the NBA season, at least the basketball version on the floor, ending tonight. We made this comp that you would know well earlier in the show, that Andrew Wiggins and Aaron Gordon, top 5 picks, go to a bad culture.
Yeah.
Teenagers asked to carry a franchise.
Yep.
It's too much. Both good athletically, defensively, go to better cultures. And literally the Wiggins on Tatum last year is like, whoa. And then Gordon on Butler. And I think Aaron Gordon is one of the most valuable teammates. And I thought Wiggins last year and Gordon this year, he's become a huge problem for Miami. His length, his size, his physicality, has he not?
No question. I mean, look, he's the highest draft pick on that Denver Nuggets roster. He's the number 4 pick. And his willingness, and yet some guys can be picked high, but they're not franchise players. They're not cornerstone players. And so he's been put into the perfect role as the third guy, much like Wiggins, same situation. And sometimes you get guys that are capable of doing that or willing to do that in order to win. And some guys aren't. They're stuck on, no, I'm a star and it needs to be built around me, and they end up never getting close to a championship. David West, you remember David West, the power forward? He was paired with Chris Paul in New Orleans, and I think he played in Indiana. And then he went to San Antonio and Golden State. And I had a chance to talk to him about this very thing. And he goes, I realized that if I was one of the main 2 players, I was not good enough to win a championship. And I wanted to win a championship. So I was willing to take a lesser role and pick an organization where I thought that I could contribute. And I can't help but feel like Aaron has made the same decision. And now you get to see some of the talent that made him the number 4 pick and why Orlando thought he might be a cornerstone player, because he can make those plays in certain situations. You just can't expect him to make it all the time with all the attention on him.
You know, it's interesting. If you look at great teams, all-time great teams, you generally have, you've got a transcendent star, a Duncan, an MVP-level high-end player, Tony Parker, and then a perfect role player, like an all-time role player, Manu Ginobili.
I'd flip Manu and Tony, but the point still made, yes.
Okay, and then even Shaq and Kobe, power scorer, perimeter scorer, and then very high-end players who are known for other things.
Yep.
You start looking at Denver, and they have mowed through the playoffs. Of the 16 teams, 1 has mowed through it.
Yeah.
You have arguably the most important player on the planet at center.
Yep. Jamal
Murray now is not only a scorer, he's an elite playmaker.
Yep.
And one of the best defensive players in the league. If Brown and Michael Porter are end of the starting, if they're rotational or end of the starting, are we looking at a great team?
Yes. I mean, they're all in their prime. Jokić is 27. I think Gordon is 27. I mean, all these guys are kind of in their late 20s. So, yeah, they have this opportunity. They've got a little bit of what Golden State had, which is they've changed the game. Like with a point center in Jokić, now I expect that teams are going to be looking to find 7 athletic 7-footers who might be able to match up with him to make the game difficult, or find some sort of wrinkle that is going to have an answer for Nikola Jokić.
This is really interesting, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I'm putting myself on the spot because I'm trying to think of something really quick before I ask the question. But great teams not only change the game, the Warriors, the league literally goes, we got to copy that. But great teams also end the previous dynasty. Golden State physically can't match up with this team.
Right.
Draymond Green's too small for Jokić. It's almost like you knew Nirvana was legendary because they made hair bands look silly. Like the hairband, you're like, no.
Yeah.
Like the Pearl Jams and the Nirvanas not only were great and changed the game to grunge, but they kind of made the previous rock stars look silly. Denver now, like if you're Golden State, you have to get bigger. You cannot compete with this team, right?
Yeah. Well, then that's where Joe Lacob's confidence that we can do this again, or we can replace all the pieces. It's like, no, you can't replace the pieces. I mean, maybe you can, but that's not going to get you there. you have to reinvent yourself. And I just don't think that there's enough credit given to how lucky the Warriors were that everything came together the way it did. They didn't construct Draymond, Clay, and Steph with an overview of what they were going to become, that they were going to become the great small ball team.
Right.
I mean, they signed DeAndre Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, to an offer sheet.
Yeah,
right?
right.
They went after Tyson Chandler, and Tyson Chandler's, you guys aren't good enough.
So they were
going to
go big.
Yeah, they went after Dwight Howard. I mean, they tried to do that. They tried to hire Stan Van Gundy. I think in fact they offered him the job. So this idea that that there was some master plan to get Steve Kerr and like all of that, no, it came together, and it was a very unique combination. And I would say in some ways, the same with the Nuggets. Like, they didn't know what they had in Jokić.
They didn't know Gordon would be this
They didn't
good.
know Aaron Gordon would accept this role.
I read one of the assistant coaches saying, we knew he was good. We had no idea it was this good.
Yeah, here's the biggest thing. When the number 4, not your pick, but the number 4 pick in a draft, drafted higher than anybody else, lottery pick, says, I'm willing to be a defensive stopper. I'm willing to play a role.
That was Wiggins.
I'm willing to come in and do this. The message that sends everybody else is as powerful as Kobe going to the Redeem team and going, hey, no, you know what? Don't worry about getting me shots. I'm just going to defend. And everybody's like, what? Oh, this guy, all he cares about is winning. That's the message that's the most powerful message that Aaron Gordon could send to the Denver Nuggets for a team, by the way, that really, outside of KCP, none of these guys have ever won a ring. That's the most amazing part of this. Like, they're figuring it out as they go collectively.
Right.
Never, and KCP's was in the bubble, which is totally different than like, okay, so how do we deal going on the road and hostile environment and up whatever you are? Like, they have no previous knowledge of how this works, and yet they found a way to get it done.
Yeah, they are really, of the 16 playoff teams, they are rolling.
They are rolling, and it's why if I'm anybody, if I'm Damian Lillard, I'm anybody in the, like, I'm, you know what? Denver, Sacramento, Memphis, with Denver clearly above those others, but there are some young teams coming in the West, and I look at the East as being the most vulnerable.
Yeah, it is interesting when you look at the great teams all time. They not only excel, but they make the previous dynasty look small, fragile, misguided, poorly constructed.
Yep.
I look at Golden State against this team, and I'm like, oh, it's not close.
Yeah.
Like that. None of your tricks work against this team.
It's the chemistry of this team. Like, everybody is happy in their roles. Nobody's, even Michael Porter Jr., who has struggled, right? I see him trying to rebound because his shot's not falling.
Yeah.
You can't put a price on guys that are willing to put their egos aside and say, how can I help us get there?
Yeah. I want to talk about, I said this, Chris Paul makes $5 million a year with State Farm, $8 million a year Jordan Brand, made $360 million or close to it with money. Mm-hmm. He's becoming the best guy never to win a title. And when I hear Woj say it's the Warriors are in the conversation, or I hear somebody say it's the Lakers, and people say, well, you can get him for a steal.
Yeah.
I don't buy that.
Yeah.
The idea the Lakers would say, we're going to pay you nothing, come off the bench. Not going to work.
Yeah.
But I don't think those fit. I think Phoenix, actually, if he came back at a reduced role, it fits for him. Mm-hmm. I think Phoenix is perfect. They don't, you know what? He's not a great defender anymore, but they've got a rim defender. You can go find somebody in the market. When you hear the Chris Paul stuff, it feels like, I want to say, Chris, you made enough money.
Yeah.
And you made $500 million or close to it. Whatever you made, $400 million.
Yep.
Go choose the team, the roster that needs you, not the brand play, the Warriors and the Lakers.
Yeah. That makes sense, especially at this point in his career. I mean, I think he's going to be 38 next year. Like,
I do think Phoenix works.
Phoenix works. I would say Boston would work.
Yes.
Right? But it has to be someplace a little bit like what the Clippers idea was, which is we know some of our talent is injury prone, but if we have enough of it, we don't have to play them 75 games to make the playoffs. We can play them 55, 60 and have them ready for the postseason. And if they're healthy at the right time, we're good. That's what Chris Paul has done everything he can to maximize his physical ability at his advanced age, much like LeBron. But there's just a point where there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much you can squeeze out of that stone. And he's at that point. So, yeah, some place where they can preserve him for the end of the year is the place that he needs to go. And I think Phoenix is potentially that.
Boston
is potentially that. After that, it's hard to imagine him having the right size role, a role big enough that he feels like I am contributing and I'm meaningful.
Because he's already taken a major pay cut if he goes to these places. Then you're asking him to come off the bench?
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
Yeah. No, it's and I don't and at this point I don't know whether he's willing to take that huge pay cut. Everybody just assumes.
Right.
We will see. He's going to no matter what, because he loses half of his salary that he was due this next season.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.